Bom dia. Estou. Let me try this again. Good morning. I'm very excited to be here. What I want to share with you is there's a lot of technology, but I want to talk about how the intersection of technology and humans are going through. I was recently in Barcelona, and I was at the Mobile World Congress, and this is a conference of about 110,000 people. Massive halls, lots of technologies, saw the future of human drones, new phones, electric cars. The future is definitely changing. And the question for each and every one of you today is your brand ready? And many of you have probably been involved in a lot of transformations. We've heard about digital transformation, business transformation, and the big thing right now is AI transformation. And you probably get a whole bunch of messages about the benefits and the workforce and how technology is going to disrupt, and there's lots of data and information. And when you reflect on that, what I really believe and observe, because I've been lucky enough to be part of a lot of these transformations, is there's actually a transformation in human behavior. And when you think about it from a consumer perspective, all the media that you read, social, there's just a bombardment of information, data, and insights, and whether it's real or fake, don't really know. So the real question for many of the enterprises is how do you dig out of all that information, separate signal from noises, and all the digital exhausts, and ask that fundamental question, how is your brand actually connecting with your consumers at a human level versus all the data and insights that we often get? And what I would say is 75% of consumers and customers actually switch brands. They're not switching brands because of price, they're switching brands because there's a gap. And it's not necessarily a gap in terms of the product or the services that we're providing. There's a gap in connecting to us as humans. And what we see here is that disconnect is really changing how we expect our brands and services to be provided. And what I can share with you is confession. We're an Apple ecosystem family. And for many of you that use an iPhone, when I swipe to the left in the top, I have our family pictures quite often. And I got to share with you, every once in a while, when you see a picture of your family or friends and it says 5 years ago, it really touches my heart, and I have a very different feeling when I get that, and I associate that with brand. And what I think's happening is, as humans, we just crave these signals that a brand actually knows us, remembers us, or even thinks of us. So when I ask you, like, how effective is your strategy today in actually connecting with the human side of your consumers? And I think the fundamental shift of the human behavior is it's a product shift to a life-centric shift. And I was in banking for many years, so I'm going to pick on the bankers if there's bankers in the audience. And I use the analogy, banks are like hardware stores. They sell drills. But as a consumer, you walk into a hardware store, you don't want to buy a drill. What you're really trying to do is put a hole in the wall. And better yet, not just a hole in the wall, you want to hang a picture. But even going further, the outcome that you're looking for is you want to build a home. But our banks sell us mortgages, credit cards, loans, but the outcomes a human and a consumer want is financial security. We want a peace of mind. We want to experience expectations and have experiences with our family. That's actually the outcome that we're looking for. And you have these technology giants. In fact, because I use search, maps, YouTube, Google probably knows more about me than my wife. And they're trying to embed themselves into our lifestyle. And when I reflect back in COVID, one of the most beneficial things for our family was always having these family dinners. And during the family dinners, we would talk about all types of things. But because we weren't spending as much, we started talking about investing. And then with our 4 kids, I said, well, we'll give you some money to invest, but you cannot invest in anything that you don't know or you don't use. So then we started talking about, oh, they talked about Snapchat, Netflix, Disney, all these different brands. But then I said, well, does that mean that you're loyal to those brands? And at the time, our 18-year-old daughter says, no, Dad. It's not that we're loyal to the brands. We're loyal to the feelings that the brand actually provides us. And that was an aha moment. And with 4 kids in the house, we're a big Lego family. So that particular Christmas, those kids actually pooled their money together and bought one of those really, really big Lego sets. And I watched them piece it together. And it wasn't about the product of piecing together the Lego. It could have been the Millennium Falcon. They actually happened to buy the Notre Dame piece. It was like 3,500 pieces. But when they're all around the table, you could see and feel the collaboration, the laughter, and what that brought together. It was the feeling of Lego. And they shared with me Lego ideas actually crowdsourced from their community ideas. And if the ideas were good enough to get enough upvotes from their customer base, it would go into production. And the creators actually got 1% of the net sales revenue. So you had this situation where you got this brand that's not only engaging their customer base, but you're finding they're actually creating and co-sourcing. So I think the future of marketing is actually be co-authored and co-designed by the community. And I'm sure my daughter took a bunch of pictures, posted on social media, and probably had some influencers following her. So now she's not only a consumer, but she's also a creator, a curator, and most importantly, a critic. So the really question here, as we shift from a product-centric world to a life-centric world, is your company selling or are they solving life problems? And I quite often get asked to talk about innovation, disruption, but I want to touch a little bit about what I consider the 4 forces that are disrupting our businesses today. And the first one I usually talk about is regulation, especially with digital acts, data privacy, data security, data jurisdiction, and most recently, actually with the tariff situation, I heard a story where Apple actually commissioned 3 cargo planes to ship a bunch of iPhones to North America to get in front of the tariffs. So big disruptions from different changes in regulations. The second big disruption is competition. And not just traditional competition, but non-traditional competition. You think Tesla back in 2008 was a technology company, but they clearly disrupted automotive manufacturing distribution. With their battery and infrastructure, they're disrupting energy distribution. And with the petabytes of data, whether it's Tesla and now these electric cars have, they can provide episodic car insurance because they know exactly where you drive, how you drive, when you drive, and disrupting a traditional business model of car insurance of risk pooling, of gender, where you live, and what you drive. Very disruptive. And obviously today you'll probably hear a lot about technology and AI. And what I can share is you think these things are like slow moving. AI's been around for since the 50s, so close to 70 years. And they look like slow tectonic shifts, but when it hits fast. So if you remember November 2022, when ChatGPT released version 3 of, OpenAI released version 3 of ChatGPT, it really disrupted and it really democratized that area of technology. And the fourth disruption, in addition to regulations, competition, technology, is customer. Customers are really finicky. They're always changing their minds. And for those of you obviously in marketing, ethnographic research, meaning what people say and what they do are often very different. If you ask me in a survey or a panel, Michael, do you want to eat healthy? I'm going to say yes. But if it's late in the afternoon, I'm probably going to get the hamburger and French fries every time. So I reflect on that, And I say that I want to buy online because it's easy and convenient. But Amazon has conditioned me to be able to not only recommend what I want to buy next through prediction, but it's very easy to buy. But when I actually get on a site and it's actually asking me after the checkout box what my name is, address, and payment, I might have a chance if there's PayPal, but I don't even consider that moving forward. And I look at how these technology companies, it just rises our expectations. One evening after an event, I was tired, cold, I'm standing outside, my wife's watching me try to get on my app, and she can see that I'm a little aggravated and frustrated. And I'm looking, the closest Uber is like 15 minutes away. And she's like, relax. Like it's just 15 minutes, because I realized I was self-aware enough that, oh my God, I'm getting angry and frustrated because I can't wait 15 minutes for a car. It was probably less than 10 years ago where we actually had to either hire a black car for a couple $100, or you actually had to call a taxi or wave one down, because my expectations have been increased. So when I look at examples of, say, Uber, and I recently was golfing, I was talking to someone about golfing, and you know that feeling when you arrive at your destination and you wonder if your golf bag or your luggage actually arrived? And I know it sounds bad, but the expectation is you lose your bags every once in a while. But a shout out to Air Canada, they actually have a notification to let you know that your bag got on the plane and it made your destination. So you can imagine how I feel, that sense of security and relief that my golf clubs actually arrived. So you have this situation where your expectations are elevated and shaped each and every day outside of your actual industry. And when I think about that, like, customers don't actually care about your products and services. What they care about is how they felt moving forward. And I think that's a very, very important point. It's back to that human feeling aspect of it. And if I unpack some more of that disruption, technology is just such a huge, huge driving factor right now. And what I mean by that is you're getting very, very sophisticated capabilities, and the price curve for technology and its impacts are going down. And you get in these situations what I call cool versus creepy. I think it's pretty cool that some of these chatbots and contact centers can figure out your tone, the speed of your voice, language, volume, even the words, and let the contact center agent know, this individual is very angry and frustrated. I need to deal with them a different way. It's kind of cool. And you can even do sentiment analysis on social media to see what your customer group is feeling at the time. But I've also heard and understand there's cameras on groups too, and they can actually focus on facial expression, micro gestures. So again, what people say and what they do in a survey, it really starts understanding what's going on there. That's a little creepy to me in terms of how sophisticated these algorithms are going to get to. And you think about all this data and technology and analytics and AI, it definitely talks about what your customer is doing or what it will do next. But I don't think we're at a point to really understand why they're actually doing it. We were recently on a family vacation in London. Actually, my wife and I and two of our kids. One of our sons was in South Africa on a service trip. And normal vacation, swipe, tap, signing the credit card for the first couple days. And the third day it got declined. I go, oh, please try again. Declined again. Very embarrassing. Got a text notice that, hey, we think there's fraud. Get back to the hotel, call up the bank, and they're authenticating me, as they usually do, and they ask a whole bunch of questions. For whatever reason, they asked the birth date of one of our sons. And I said, oh, something like May 29th, 2000, and my wife just chimed in and said 2001. The contact center agent actually said, who was that? I go, oh, it's just my wife. And they said, it wasn't you that answered. Long story short, she actually told me, we're going to have to lock your credit card and all your subsidiary credit cards, including my son that was on a service trip in South Africa. And she completely missed the point. She even said, we're doing this with our fraud detection to protect you. But you could imagine how I would have felt and my wife having a son in South Africa traveling without access to their credit card. And my point there is it's not about scale and efficiency and lowering costs using AI. Completely missed the point in terms of how the customer must have felt at that time in the context of why I was angry about it. And when I reflect on a converse example, for those of you that use Spotify, we're a Spotify family as well. And at the end of the year, they have this function called Spotify Wrap. And what it is, it's the use of data, and it shares with you all your favorite genres, the songs, how many hours you listen to, and it is absolutely one of the most favorite things our family looks forward to. And we have a lot of laughs because one year, if you ask me, what kind of music do you like? And I'm all cool and macho about Pearl Jam, Foo Fighters, like grunge. And the #1 song on my list that maybe 3 years ago was Intentions by Justin Bieber. And my kids still don't let me live that down. But that's an example of a brand or experience that's using data that brings joy into our lives, and it taps into a different type of feeling. So what I ask about, when you think about using AI and technology in the future of marketing, is it trying to close the gap using technology to build more empathy and connection to your customers, or are you just cranking out data? Because I think that's a big, big difference of how you actually deploy technology in the future. It's technology powered, but don't lose the element about the humans through that process. And when I use the example of Spotify, it starts building, I don't feel like it's trying to sell me or it's never really trying to upgrade me. It's starting to get into this element of trust. And I think about what customers really want in their brands, and they want to reflect their values. So Dove comes to mind in terms of body positivity and real beauty. Patagonia is often used as a case study in terms of sustainability. And those are great areas, but it's really trust is built on what you're doing and acting, not on the actual ads. And what I think about now is, although technology is great for the data, the analytics, the AI, the price of technology, because it's gone down so much, you think about the internet, what it did, it democratizes and increased the access to information. AI was really special because what it did was it democratized, lowered the price and access to decision-making and automation. Gen AI is really interesting because what it does is it actually has cognitive thinking abilities, but it can deploy it at scale in capacity for a much, much lower cost. And if you think Gen AI is very modern, that's so 2024. Because now the big buzz is around agentic AI and agents, where it combines cognitive thinking with action and workflow. So obviously, behavior psychology has been around for years, but now we're getting to this stage between creation, production, measurement. You could do this at capacity and scale, and that's like a game-changing move. But that still only provides you with those transactional services. I think the game-changing move in the future of marketing is figuring out how technology can help look into the eyes of your customers and figure out the soul. And what I mean by that is, does it actually listen? Does it start deploying empathy? Does it respect your emotions? And that's where you start building that trust and getting that emotional return on investment through there. And I think when you translate those feelings into figuring out how your brand is actually trusted, I believe tech with soul listens first, serves second, and only sells when it's earned that level of trust. So if I wrap up, and the tagline here is, I've been involved in doing a lot of customer journeys and moments that matter, but I think that big behavioral shift in terms of the future of marketing is changing, and that shift from moments to actual meaning. And that human shift is really getting into that purpose, and that's going to be the game-changing move. And the expectation now for AI and technology is really start translating to what the customer does and will do, and really getting understanding into the human aspects of why, and the expectations of a customer that's constantly changing. And I think when you look in the future, it's not about the company that has the most data or the best AI and technology or the fastest type of infrastructure. I think the future is actually going to be won by optimizing for connection. And that's connection over clicks to actually win that trust of the customer. Thank you very much.